Welcome to Crunchy Stewardship. I'm Chrissy Rombach.
And I'm Katie Fiola-Jones. We're cousins on a mission to honor God by stewarding our health spiritually, mentally, and physically.
From ancestral nutrition and natural remedies to biblical finance and holistic health, we are digging deep into how God intended us to live.
So grab yourself a raw milk latte and join us as we unpack the ins and outs of Crunchy Stewardship.
Hey, and welcome back to Crunchy Stewardship. You are here with Chrissy and Katie once again, talking about all things crunchy, all things stewarding our lives well with the resources that God has given us and maximizing our health to its fullest potential without breaking the bank, which is always the most important thing. Today, we are going to be transitioning away from our baby episodes. So we just finished a series on fertility and then raising children and childhood ailments and things like that. We are officially moving back to our usual form of episode, which is really just talking about overall health and wellness and how to maximize it. So today, we are going to specifically be talking about ingredients that are banned in other countries, including those in Europe and Asia, that America still currently allows in their food, and maybe why it would be banned in these other countries and why America still allows it in their food. But before we get started on that, I'm actually really looking forward to today's episode because I'm anticipating learning a lot. I know Katie knows a lot about this topic, but I'm hoping to learn a lot from this one. Before we get started, though, Katie, would you share your random revelation for this week?
Yes, I will. And I don't know if I would say I know a lot. I just collect a lot of facts when I hear them and over the time. So basically today's episode is basically my collection of facts that I've learned of things that have been banned. And I've just been keeping them in this Google Doc. And so, yeah, we'll be going through all those. But anyway, today's random revelation is brought to you from a book that Chrissy actually got me on making homemade bread. And now I'm forgetting the title of it. It's by Sue Becker, right? Is her name, I think.
Yes, it's like Bread Essentials by Sue Becker. Sue Becker is, if you go back to our bread episode, which I think was like episode number 4 or something like that we ever recorded. Bear with us, we did not have the cool intro yet, so it's a really boring intro. But if you go back and listen to that episode, I think I do talk about Sue Becker. She's been featured in the Cultural Apothecary podcast and I think also the Josh Axe podcast.
Probably.
So she's very well known in the fresh baked bread world.
Yeah. She knows a lot about bread and kind of the history of how we got to making flour or making bread with pre-milled flour, because Sue Becker is all about making bread from fresh milled flour. So basically making your own flour at home from wheat berries. And Chrissy ventured into that area of crunchiness way before I did. I think it was your first area of crunchiness, right? You kind of jumped into making bread from scratch completely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so that was where she did. And so when we moved here to Michigan, she gifted me this book by Sue Becker, and a little flour mill. So I've got the cute little mini flour mill. And I finally, once we moved into our actual house here in Michigan, not like just moving to Michigan because we lived somewhere temporarily. Once we finally landed in our home that we bought, I picked the book up, studied it like I love studying things, and then dove into making bread with home milled flour. And so I've been doing that a little bit here and there and learned a lot of facts from her book. So this fact that I'm sharing today is from her book, and it's basically that home ground flour is nutritionally superior to like any homemade bread that was made with pre-milled flour, so this is the fact. It says, according to the USDA's nutrient database, Compared to the heavily processed whole wheat version, freshly ground hard red wheat flour has twice the calcium and phosphorus, twice the amount of crucial B vitamins, like B3 and what is that, 2 or B1 maybe? I can't read it in my picture. B1, I think it says. And nearly twice the riboflavin, which is vitamin B2. So yeah, I guess that's the other B vitamin. And it also has 3 times the iron and 4 times the potassium. So basically, home ground flour is much more superior. It's much more nutrient dense and has a lot more going for it than homemade bread with pre-milled flour. So like the flour that you're just getting at the grocery store, even if it's organic and even if it's like bleach-free, unbleached flour or whatever, if you're making it not with home milled flour, it does not have as many nutrients. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily completely bad for you, but in like a good, better, best situation kind of thing, the best is like home milled with organic wheat berries, and then the next best is like organic pre-milled flour, and then maybe the not organic versions of these things. And then basically the not as great options are getting things that are pre-made. But there are actually a lot more options these days for better organic breads. My friend just told me about one at Costco that she's been getting when she doesn't have time to make her own bread, because she's also making her own bread from home milled flour as well. But she just told me about this one and I need to look it up. But it's from Costco. There's a brand now that they have that's super clean, and she's like, it's the only bread I trust that like is pre-made, basically.
I would love to hear that, because when we don't have time to make bread, well, actually, one of my weird pregnancy food aversions has been fresh baked bread, which is really annoying. I know, really annoying. Like, I can't look at a loaf of sourdough or a loaf of fresh bread.
But what about like bread from the store then?
Yeah, so prepackaged disgusting bread, totally fine.
What? That is the weirdest thing.
So we've been getting Dave's bread, which from the ingredients, I think there's like maybe one ingredient in the Dave's bread that is semi-questionable, I guess. But the loaf of bread itself still looks too much like a fresh baked loaf of bread, so it still kind of gives me the ick looking at it. So I've been eating the hamburger buns from Dave's.
Oh, okay. From Dave's at least. Okay. That's so funny you
Dave's
say that.
hamburger buns.
I went to Aldi the other day and I was specifically looking for buns for like brats because we're going camping this weekend, and I actually usually eat brats without any buns in it.
Did I tell you that bratwurst was also one of my weird pregnancy cravings?
Cravings or aversions?
Cravings.
Oh, okay. Well, that's better. There you go. I didn't know that.
I really, really wanted bratwurst for like 2 weeks. It was great. I had like 8 bratwurst in 2 weeks.
Do you eat them with buns or just plain?
No, they're just. Well, I dipped it in ketchup. I did get organic ketchup, but it wasn't great. I know. You just
you're just being silly. I went to Aldi and I was supposed to get buns for the brats, which I usually don't eat a bun with my brat except when I go camping, because I kind of like just the extra something. I don't know. For some reason when I'm camping, I'm like, that's the only time I really want a bun on my brat. And I could not get myself to buy any of the buns that were at Aldi because all of them were so bad. Like all the ingredients were just, they were all seed oils. Like everyone had seed oils, and then all of them had preservatives. And here's why I was thinking Aldi maybe would have an okay one. Aldi is actually where I do go if I quick need a nice loaf of bread for a dinner that is generally somewhat healthier, because Aldi has some sourdough breads that have basically the ingredients are just flour, water, salt, and sourdough starter. It's like, that's all that's listed on it. And I'm like, wow, this is actually relatively clean. And they just recently started carrying, at least at my Aldi, an organic sourdough, and it's all like no seed oils, no preservatives, no nothing. And so I actually got that for our for our brats for camping. And I'm like, we're just using plain old sourdough because I couldn't get myself to buy any of the other ones because I'm like, I'm not going to eat it anyway because I know that it's made with all these terrible ingredients that I'm going to be so disappointed that I'm eating while I'm camping. So anyway, that was random tangent about it. But anyway, all that to say, there are some options out there. I just texted my girlfriend to see if by the end of the episode we could get the name of it so we can share the name of the one that's at Costco right now because it actually was pretty good. But milling your own flour is actually not too bad.
It's very delicious. It just requires a little bit of learning curve because the flour is more dense.
Okay, have you made sourdough with your home milled flour?
I never actually got on the sourdough train, but my friend makes sourdough and I want to give her some wheat to make the sourdough with.
Okay. I'm brand new still to milling my own flour. So yes, there is that just slight learning curve. I've been finding that with my quick breads, like my quick yeast breads, it's been fine. I really like the sandwich breads that we've been making with the fresh milled flour. So that's been really great. But I'm venturing back into doing sourdough for the first time since 2022, which is, I think, I calculated the last time I did sourdough because it was before we became foster parents, which was early 2023. And I don't think I did any in the process of moving to our house right before that. So it would have been sometime in 2022. Anyway, I haven't done sourdough in a long time. So I'm getting back into doing sourdough, which is also a learning curve, just doing sourdough in general. But I also did it with my fresh milled flour, and the bread tasted fine, but it was way more dense than I anticipated it being. You know, you want sourdough to be kind of fluffy and have those airy holes in it and stuff. So I did text my girlfriend, and she said that maybe I was using hard white wheat berries, and she thinks if I do soft white wheat berries, which I just ordered some, that maybe it would turn out a little bit less dense.
Either soft or a 50-50.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. And you could also look into, like, I haven't tried these other wheats just because I'm more cheapy when it comes to buying wheat and I just buy one kind. But trying like buckwheat or einkorn or something like that, like they all have slightly different flavor profiles and slightly different densities.
Okay. Yep. I think I need to watch some YouTube videos and see what other people are doing too. Yeah. I also feel like, you know, I lived in higher altitude before coming here. And so not that recipes are like extremely different, but I just got so used to baking in higher altitudes that I'm like, okay, how do I like relearn to bake at lower altitude?
It definitely affects rise times and rise abilities for sure.
Yeah. So it's a learning curve, and obviously, there's more moisture in the air here. All the random little things that technically do impact it. I am figuring it out. I've only done one loaf of sourdough so far, but I've done a few loaves of regular, like, quick yeast breads with the home milled flour. And it's actually, I really like it. And I feel so much better feeding it to, like, Malachi and to Wes and everyone because I do know that it has a lot more packed into the loaf of bread than just a traditional loaf from your grocery store or even that I was making before with our other flour. So anyway,
one more shameless plug about fresh ground wheat bread is one loaf of bread has more iron in it than a New York strip.
That's weird.
I know. Isn't that interesting? It's like eating the whole loaf of bread, which is nearly impossible because of its density. Like, it's like nutrient density, you get much fuller faster. And more satisfied faster. But if you were to eat the whole loaf of bread, you would get more iron than if you ate the whole New York strip.
Very interesting. I'm excited to make more things like pancakes and muffins with fresh milled flour because It will be. It will be a healthier treat, especially if you're making it with no sugars and things like that, which we already do. And we already make these like protein pancakes with like, it's usually like 2 eggs, a banana, a little bit of flour, some cinnamon. It's very light on the grains. But then if I switch that now to our fresh milled flour, it's going to be that much more nutrient packed for Malachi, because we plan on making some when we go camping, because they're really easy to just make a bunch of mini pancakes, throw them in a bag, and then they're a really good little protein snack for him. And I feel good
That's
about
great.
giving it to him when we're out traveling and stuff, because they're easy to carry around, and he doesn't require syrup or anything. He just kind of eats them like a regular piece of bread or whatever.
I'm going to stick that one in my back pocket.
Yeah, it's a good one.
All right, well, we could talk about bread all day long. If anyone gets me talking
Literally.
about bread, I will have a full 3-hour conversation with them about bread. I love it so much. It's my favorite thing in the world, except right now I can't eat it. But let's transition to our actual topic for today, which is foods, specifically ingredients that are banned in other countries and why. We have a lot to go through. We probably won't get through all of it today. I don't think we're going to do a part 2, but we'll see. We're just going to touch on the top ones and see where it goes from there.
Yeah. So actually, the first big one that I do want to mention, because this ingredient is actually just so terrible, is titanium dioxide. And so it, first off, is banned in the EU. And this comes from, and maybe I'll add some of these articles to our show notes so you guys can kind of look into some of these if you're curious on it. We'll give you the lowdown of the important information. But if you do want to see, where are we getting this information? Because sometimes, Chrissy just had an experience where she was Googling something earlier and she's like, wait, is this true that, this isn't used in Russia or whatever? And then Google was like, oh, whatever. And it doesn't really give you really good information sometimes if you Google these things and they're like, oh, it's not a big deal, whatever. Well, we'll link to some articles that will hopefully be helpful if you do want to see some more actual evidence that isn't easily found on Google. So the first one here is titanium dioxide, which is used to make things more white. And so if you think of breads, for example, actually, is where you honestly do find a lot of titanium dioxide. You find it in white breads or white cakes. You actually find it in ice creams as well. So anything that is really, really white will often have titanium dioxide, which makes things more bright white. It is linked to, genotoxicity and intestinal inflammation. But yeah, it's used very widely. In fact, if you look at most of your white foods, some other ones that the article lists are even like chewing gums and other candies that are very white. Those are some other things, some other places you'll find it. You'll see that it is more prevalent in different places. And a lot of people skim over it because we have been hearing a lot more about the food dyes in different foods. So Red 40 is one that a lot of people know because it is linked to hyperactivity in children. And so that's becoming a little bit more widely known. And so people are more acutely aware of, if you see a color with a number after it in your food ingredients, skip that food altogether. Well, titanium dioxide doesn't sound like a food coloring in any sense, but yet it's used in a lot of things that are very bright white. So it's basically like a food coloring, but it is something that is used widely throughout the US. And it is also linked to being possibly carcinogenic for humans. So basically leading to cancer. I'm trying to think of other things. Oh,
It's
it
also
looks
linked
like
to Alzheimer's.
Yes.
Mhm.
See, that's another big one.
That's the genotoxin, so affecting the DNA of the cells.
And so then inevitably affects the cells of the brain.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's one of those ones that I think we need to be more aware of, especially with kids. The article does say, it's in candies such as Skittles, Starburst, the brand Jello, and Trident white peppermint gums have it. Mentos, fresh mint gums, Duncan Hines creamy vanilla frosting has it, and Nabisco's Chips Ahoy cookies have it. So it's like all these like name brands that most of us are familiar with and most of us have probably eaten. And so just need to be super aware and cautious of titanium dioxide. It's one of those ones that recently I've been hearing a lot more lately about how bad it is. So just be on the lookout, especially, if you're making, there's another reason you should make your own bread is because titanium dioxide might be in your bread, especially if you're eating like white breads. So, yep,
Sure.
There's the first one.
There we go. I love it. Hitting it off the bat. Okay. Let's talk about red dye number 3. So technically, well, dyes in general, Katie, has it been all dyes or just specific ones that have been banned here in the United States now?
So originally it was just specific ones or just like certain, I think it was like red 40 and something else that were like, okay, these are banned by this point. But then now it's becoming wider that I think by the end of 2027, like everything has to have these food dyes, which actually it did come up in a conversation with Wes and I because we were at one of our favorite cherry places here in Michigan. It's like a store that has like everything cherry flavored and all of their candies, their cherry flavored candies, like all of them had red 40 in it or red 3. And he was like, wait, I thought you said that they were banned. And I'm like, they are, but like the way that they make these initiatives is
like, but not yet.
It is, but you have, it's like a phase out. Like you have until a certain point in order to phase it out of your products, which makes, like, I understand because if you were like, okay, everything today cannot have it, there would be a lot of like wasted products and stuff.
Wasted products, and all these companies would go out of business, which is a lot of jobs that America would lose. So I do think it's wise that they take time to phase it out, gives the companies time to create new recipes for their products and to test them and see how they actually taste, and then not lose their employees and not lose their business. So from an economic standpoint, it makes sense. Yes. But anyways, they are still in our food until 2027. Unfortunately, but it is what it is.
It also like confuses me because so a lot of these food dyes are already not used in Europe, and it's like they're already making Fruit Loops in other countries without the food dyes. So I'm like, why don't you just switch it up and start it? And
like off-brand Fruit Loops don't use food dyes. I actually remember growing up, my parents didn't let us get on-brand Fruit Loops because they were too expensive. We had to get the off-brand stuff. And shopping at Aldi specifically, their off-brand Fruit Loops had like beet coloring, carrot coloring, like beets, carrots, and turmeric to color their Fruit Loops instead of blue, yellow, red, green. Yeah.
Well, we can talk now about some of the pesticides. Paraquat and Diquat are two of the ones that are banned in other places. So Paraquat is linked to things like Parkinson's, and it's used on a lot of crops, such as corn, wheat, and soy. So I've mentioned this before, but like corn, wheat, and soy are like the 3 main crops that are also traditionally genetically modified crops here in America. And so because of that, they like have to use a lot of pesticides on them, basically, is what it seems like to me. I guess I don't know that for a fact, but typically if they're genetically modified, that also means they have just tons of pesticides used on them. And so, yeah, there's a lot of not great things if you're buying corn, wheat, and soy that is not organic. And one of them is that it's likely sprayed with Paraquat or Diquat, which these are the two that a lot of pesticide companies are kind of switching to after there's been like the whole attack on glyphosate. I'm like, why am I forgetting? So glyphosate has been hounded on for the last several years. And so again, it's another one of those ones that people have been recognizing the name. And so companies are like, oh, we're going to just switch to this new pesticide that's supposedly supposed to not be super toxic, but basically anything that has a pesticide, any pesticide is just not good. Because you think about like if it's supposed to kill pests, what is it doing to humans if it's killing these animals? Like we're the only I've seen these like memes on Instagram where it's like we're the only species that sprays our food with something that's meant to kill other species. And it's like like it's supposed to kill life and yet we're eating it ourselves. But Paraquat specifically is banned in the UK, in the EU, in China, Brazil, and then there's other countries now that are jumping on board. But yet here in America, we are still spraying it. And it's kind of like, well, why is it still sprayed here? Well, because the EPA is this article or this Instagram thing that I'm reading. It's like because it's captured by like big agriculture and a lot of people still make money off of it. Actually, interestingly enough, I think I've mentioned, we have a friend here who works for the pesticide companies out here, and he really does believe that spraying pesticides on our foods is helping to create less food scarcity, right? Did I say that right? And basically like it's helping feed the world. When in reality, pesticides harm our soil at the end of the day. Like it's harming the soil, which then eventually will lead to nutrient depletion in our soil. And then crops will have a harder and harder time being grown in the soil as the nutrients are depleted. Because plants, just like humans, need nutrients to grow and to survive and to thrive. And so if there's less and less nutrients in the soil, it's harder for those plants to actually grow and survive. And so as we spray more and more chemicals on our crops, the soil is just becoming dead. And so we can't continue to use those same lands, the farmland, in order to grow crops. So it's very unfortunate that we've kind of come to this place.
One thing that can actually be done instead of using pesticides, because a lot of people are like, yeah, well, I have this Japanese beetle that's attacking my pecan trees. Like, what am I supposed to do about it? The only way to get rid of a Japanese beetle is to use pesticides, right? No. You find the predator of whatever your pest is. So a lot of times these predators are like snails, lizards, geckos, I don't know, the little mice even, little things like that.
I think
are
chickens will eat them
chickens,
too.
Yes, chickens. Very helpful for helping to get rid of pests. Additionally, planting, I might say this wrong, but like polycropping as opposed to monocropping. So monocropping is when you put all of the same plant of the same species all right next to each other. Like when you're driving past a cornfield, that's a monocrop. You just have a bunch of corn all right next to each other. A polycrop is, say, like an orchard that has like 6 different kinds of trees in it that are kind of just scattered all over the place. And so you have multiple different types of plants, or even like your backyard garden, I would consider more of a polycrop, because you have multiple different types of plants that are next to each other, and those different plants will act as pesticides or like pest deterrents for other plants, and they will help to put nutrients back in the soil that other plants are using, and so it helps to keep the soil having more nutrients, more nutrientized, helps to keep more nutrients in the soil, and then also helps to deter pests from attacking the plants that they would usually attack. So that's also an option instead of using pesticides. Now, some of that does need to be done like proactively instead of retroactively, like the polycropping, needs to be a proactive thing because you can't just plant an apple tree and expect it to be 10 feet tall in a day. So that's one thing to keep in mind. But in the grand scheme of things, that is how that goes. So let's move on to, I'm going to say this one wrong. Azotic
Azo. It's azodicarbonide.
Wow, that's
I
so
remember
much
it.
easier to say.
I've heard it talked about on podcast. It's like azodicarbonide, carbon.
Azodicarbonide. Okay, so the short is ADA.
Yeah, also known as ADA.
Not the disability people.
Yeah.
The chemical. Yes, thank you. So this chemical is banned in both Australia and the EU. It's actually used in a lot of plastics. So it is what gives our plastics like their foamy texture. So think of like a yoga mat or styrofoam or something like that, or like spongy putty kind of stuff. Like that is this ADA component giving it that spongy texture. And so if you think about like a loaf or a piece of like Wonder Bread, if you like squish Wonder Bread and then unsquish it, it like goes back into its shape and doesn't crumble in your hand, versus if you squish a fresh baked loaf of bread, it will crumble in your hand because that's what it's supposed to do as bread. So this ADA is very common in a bunch of breads, a bunch of snacks, stuffing specifically. So anything that has like a kind of spongy-esque texture to it that's a processed food probably has this ADA in it. And that's what's giving it this spongy-esque texture to it. So something to keep in mind. Read those food labels. Stay away from that one if you can.
Yes. Some of the other products that have it. So bread is, yes, probably the biggest one. Croutons also typically have it. So you think about how they're kind of like a fluffier looking piece of bread, but then they're dried out. So a lot of the like any ballpark brand food, so the ballpark hot dog buns, which I've seen, and the things that I was like looking at the store, those do. Smucker's typically has it in most of their products. Wonder Bread, yes, is obviously one of them. Little Debbie's is also known for having it. Unfortunately, the Kroger brand typically uses it in most of their foods. Jimmy Dean breakfast sandwiches have it. So I'm just like naming some of the ones that I'm like, we've probably used it. Oh, Pillsbury is another big one. Pillsbury typically does have it, the ADA chemical in theirs. Tyson also, I guess. I'm trying to think. Tyson I just usually know as chicken, but I guess maybe, I wonder if...
Hey, that chicken is rather spongy.
Yeah, most of those chickens also probably are dunked in chlorine or, all the nasty stuff. But anyway, it is one of those ones that actually, so California's Proposition 65 is one of those ones that lists this chemical, the ADA, as like they have warnings against it as like possibly dangerous to human health, like quote unquote. But people don't usually think of it like they don't. It's still in so many products, and people are just like, oh, whatever, I'm just going to eat this hot dog bun and not think about it, which I am definitely myself. Like, I feel like I should say, just because I know about these doesn't mean I always stay away from them. There are definitely times where I'm like, okay, whatever, I'm going to eat the hot dog bun here because I want a hot dog bun. But I'd say in most situations, I know that it's going to make me feel really upset. I had this, someone brought some ice cream to our house the other day, and I'm not going to say any specifics about it because I don't want anyone to feel bad for bringing it to our house. But it made my tummy not feel great. A lot of people have brought ice cream to our house recently, so it could be anyone who brought it. But there was this specific ice cream, and then I ate it, and later my stomach really was upset, and I went and looked back at it, and it had a lot of these things that we're talking about in it. And I usually know, like, a lot of these preservatives, a lot of these chemicals, a lot of these conditioners, these food dyes are in our products, and I know that they make me feel bad. And I didn't look at the label ahead of time. Plus, I really just wanted ice cream, and I ate it. And then later, I went and looked at the ingredient list, and I was like, oh my gosh. And I was like, no wonder I feel so terrible right now. And my stomach was just like, oh, that feeling where it's just like, it's angry with you. And that was what happened.
Yeah. I also want to give a little encouragement to our listeners, since we are talking about like foods to stay away from and things like that. This is kind of a random time in the podcast to say this, but remember, we are here. We're not striving for perfection, because striving for perfection increases our stress levels, which increases our cortisol. And then what's the point of doing all of this anyways? Because cortisol really just wreaks havoc on our digestive systems. So really the whole point of this is every day just trying to do a little bit better than the day before. And as you're using up products in your pantry, next time you buy something, opt for a healthier version, or opt for something that has a less amount of bad and quote unquote bad ingredients in it. It's just practicing reading food labels, practicing what it feels like to say, maybe instead of this Hershey's chocolate bar, I'm going to get this Who chocolate bar that only has 4 ingredients in it, rather than Hershey's that has like 16. You're still having a chocolate bar, but it's a better option, and it's not going to damage your body as well. You still get that nice chocolate feeling, when you eat the healthier version of things. And I would even argue that as you start making these swaps, especially if you're going slowly, if you try to swap all of these all at once, it's going to be hard, because so many of us have food cravings and food addictions that we don't even know about, because we just feed these addictions without realizing it. And so if we slowly but surely phase out these foods and replace them with good foods, we will see those food addictions decreasing. They won't affect us as much. And slowly but surely, you'll find your desires for healthy foods growing and your desires for unhealthy foods diminishing. That is, until you start eating the unhealthy foods again, and immediately those cravings and addictions to the unhealthy foods come back. So I just want to encourage our listeners, like, as you hear us talking about this, like, don't let the stress and anxiety of like, oh my gosh, all of these foods in my pantry are banned and I can never eat any of it. No, that's not what we're trying to say. We're trying to say just beware and be wise and be cognizant of the things that you're putting in your body. And we're not striving for perfection. We are striving for just doing our absolute darndest to be as best as we can. So just want to throw that little tidbit of information in there.
Speaking of chocolate, there is a chocolate at Aldi, which Aldi I've been going to surprisingly has a lot of decent options that are really good prices. They have they've been getting more and more organic products and foods and things like that. They have some organic like grass-fed meats and everything too. But they did actually recently get my favorite popcorn, which is by Lesser Evil. They also sell that at Costco. It's a brand. The brand is called Lesser Evil, but don't get the salt, the Himalayan. The one that you want is just the Himalayan salt. But if you get the butter flavored one, the ingredient is butter flavor on the ingredient. And we've talked about staying away from ingredients that say flavor on it because you don't actually know what that's made of. But they do have a chocolate there that I feel better getting. It does have soy lectin in it, which I know some people are kind of like, it maybe isn't the best ingredient to be added into things, but it is just like sugar, cocoa butter, the soy lectin, sea salt, and vanilla extract. This is specifically their dark chocolate sea salt of the, I think it's pronounced Moser Roth, Moser Roth, like a Roth IRA. And it's their dark chocolate sea salt. There are other ones that are flavored. So they have like mint and they have like a caramel. Those ones are not, don't get those ones. They have other ingredients in it that are not good. But specifically, they're dark chocolate ones or the dark chocolate sea salt, which is my favorite. So I usually keep that chocolate in my house because I'm like, this one feels a little bit better because it doesn't have all the other terrible stuff in it. All right.
No, wait, hang on. Now that you mentioned the ingredients on that one, I kind of sort of just feel the urge to one-up you on my chocolate bar because
Ooh.
so this Who chocolate bar is found at grocery stores everywhere, like Whole Foods, Target, Walmart, Thrive, you name it. The ingredients are cacao, coconut sugar, coconut butter, cocoa butter, coconut sugar, and cacao, and all of them are organic. And that's it.
Is it like really expensive?
It's like $5 a bar. So,
Okay.
yeah, decently, but worth it in my opinion.
Yeah.
Better than buying a $5 gallon of ice cream.
Is it the one that's HU? Who? Oh, okay. I typed in WHO chocolate bar and I was like, there's nothing here that's coming up.
HU who? Like human. Because we are human.
Cool. We'll have to check those ones out too.
Yes.
I can't tell you what the price is of the Aldi one off the top of my head.
Aldi doesn't post their prices online.
I
'cause they
know. Yeah,
change
I was like, I don't know exactly what it is, but I feel like it's Aldi, so they're usually decent prices, maybe.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to some other ones. Chicken. This one's interesting. The UK will not buy chicken from Delaware, and the US will not buy chicken from Mexico. What do they do to the chickens in Delaware?
I'm sorry, that just... I know, I literally just have that fact written down. And it says nothing else about it.
And there's not
So
even
it
a
is
link
just-
to an article on this one.
I know, it is so mysterious. Okay, so...
I mean, Google chicken processing in Delaware.
So it's the chlorine thing. So I kind of mentioned that, I think, that the chickens in Delaware are typically treated with chemical washes made with chlorine, or there's another something acid, like I forget what it's called. But basically, because of like British food safety laws, they have made it illegal to import any of those meats because of the chemical washing.
I think I mentioned in one of my previous episodes, one of my friends, she has a sibling who lives in Europe, I think the UK specifically. And her sibling was like, I'm your chlorine chicken.
But literally, I mean, you wash, okay, if you have, who has not opened up like a packet of chicken breasts and then let it thaw on their counter and it's like leaking this white liquid out of it, and you're like, that's very suspicious. And then you realize that it's something like 20 or 30% of the weight that you're paying for in the chicken is made up of that liquid, like chlorine mix. And it's just so nasty when it thaws and it just all comes out. But then you look at the like cleaner, organic, pasture raised chickens, air chilled, that weren't pumped with a bunch of soy products. And the chicken breasts for those look so teeny. And you're like, oh, I'm paying so much more for this tiny little chicken breast compared to these big, plump ones from Tyson that look really meaty and everything. But really, a lot of it is just that chemical bath soaked into the meat. And then it drains out and there's not that much left anyway. And I will say, like, I have totally noticed a difference switching to cleaner meats, that first off, it makes me feel better. It makes me feel fuller. It gives me more energy, and it tastes way better than a lot of the chickens that we've been getting from like Tyson or something like that.
I can attest to that. At Christmas, I served my anti-organic father grass-fed beef and wild-caught salmon. He took one bite of that steak and he said, "Is this organic?" And I said, "Yeah, how'd you know?" He said, "Just tastes like it."
See,
He,
Bob?
like, wasn't really able to verbalize it, but was like, I can tell this is organic chicken or organic steak
Yes.
just by the way that it tastes. Because it's different. And even though we didn't use a grill, we used a
Wow.
cast iron. And he still was like, this is different.
That's impressive.
Well, we have a lot. So for context, we have a lot of international neighbors in our apartment complex. And for their sake, I do my best not to cook any food that could be potentially offensive to anybody on the public grills.
Hence,
So-
like what? Cow?
Or beef. Or, hello. Cow or pork.
Pork.
One of my friends made that
Interesting.
mistake. She got caught cooking bacon burgers on the grill. And 2 different families from 2 different countries walked by. And she was shunned by both of the grandmothers. It was very unfortunate.
I feel like that's slightly unfair because if you're here in America,
That's true.
it's like, you know that we don't hold those same views
Yes.
of the animals. I mean, that would be very different. Like if you were going to those countries and openly cooking the animals. Here, it would be so different if someone just like, okay, this is so terrible, but here I'm going. It'd be so different if someone like sliced up a dog and just started
It's
grilling
true.
a
Yeah, if
dog.
someone was cooking dog on the grill, I'd be like, how dare you?
Whereas like
In-
in other countries, they do that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like
Anyways, just a funny tangent.
I can understand like they might internally be offended, but the fact that they like continued to hold
think
that
it was
offense.
Grandma who was in town visiting her children
Okay.
and like didn't really speak English
Was
and
just like appalled at our
was like,
American
what are
society.
you doing? Yeah.
Oh,
So funny.
yes.
Anyways, moving on.
Okay, so another one that I have listed is calcium peroxide. This is the bleaching agent and dough conditioner that is also banned in countries such as China. And it's also banned in certain food stores such as Whole Foods. Now, this is what's interesting. Okay, so this fact actually is really cool. I do know, and I did hear, I should have written this down, and maybe I can look it up or maybe you can. Aldi, okay, here we go back to Aldi, which is so funny. They did recently come out that they're banning certain ingredients to be sold in products in their store, which is, again, like they're hearing people and they're hearing that people want better options. And so places like Whole Foods, yes, they have been doing better with certain products, and same thing with Aldi. And so it's great because you can go there being like, oh, I know
think-
that they're not going to have this calcium peroxide.
I think Whole Foods specifically actually has 300 banned ingredients.
Oh,
And-
wow.
Yeah, because they have it written on their grocery bags. Like their grocery bag says it's what's not in the bag, and then it has all of the ingredients that
true.
they have banned. And I think there's like 300 or so on there.
I don't think seed oils is one of them, though, at
It's
this
not.
point.
Unfortunately, it is not.
And that's like one of those items right now that you find in so many quote unquote healthy foods.
Oh, it's still in everything. Yeah.
And it's like, actually, that is one of those items that I'm like, if you are paying extra right now to buy a healthier item and yet it still has seed oils, just stop. Like it's almost like not as worth it to be spending extra money on something that is supposedly supposed to be healthier and organic, and then has the seed oils, which are just so inflammatory, and it's just not helpful. So I would say that is one of those things that I'm like, be on the lookout for that.
The hard thing is when like your options are something with 4 questionable ingredients, and then the other option is only
Just the seed oil.
one questionable ingredient, which is the seed oil. And it's
Mhm.
like, which one do you go with? Like personally, I would go with the seed oil, and we just pray a little extra over that food.
Yes. Lord,
Which,
please still
okay,
use this food to nourish my body.
fun fact, they've actually done research studies on prayer, and praying like food that has been prayed over does not go bad as fast as food that has not been prayed over.
Like, doesn't go bad, like meaning it doesn't get
Doesn't
stale
mold.
or
Yeah.
mold. Huh.
And they've done research studies. I think I've mentioned this one before. They had a group of monks praying over one group of people with an illness, and then the other group of people did not have any illness, or did not have anyone praying over them. And they had two groups had the same illnesses, and the group that had the monks praying over them got better, or like didn't have as bad of illness as the group that did not have anyone praying over them.
That's kind of cool.
So they've done research about prayer, and it's a very powerful thing. So.
It is. I should be praying over my groceries when I take them home more often and be like, please bless this food to not mold in my pantry.
That is always
It kind of sounds silly, but it does. I mean, I totally get it. I mean, prayers.
And
so
unfortunately,
important
the
for
reality is, like, as we're transitioning to healthier foods, the risk of them molding faster is higher because we don't have the preservatives in them, which is great.
Mhm.
But it just means that we have to be a little bit more intentional with the food that we buy and the frequency with which we buy it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like when you wonder, like, oh, how did we get here with having all these preservatives and all these terrible things in our food? There was a point to it. People, they were trying to figure out how to make food last longer because you're no longer making your own, first off. You're no longer just making it in your home and then eating it quickly. And
Like
then
with the industrialization era.
yes. And then, slowly things did start moving out of the house, but usually it was like you have like a miller in your town, and they were milling flour, and you could go buy the fresh milled flour from the person in town, and you were making your bread right there in town. And it was like over time though, they realized, okay, if I'm selling this flour, it's going to go bad really quickly if people don't use it. You usually have to use fresh milled flour within a week. But then they realized if they started taking things out of the flour, then it would be more shelf stable. Well, then over time, they realized, well, if we bleach it and if we add in these extra vitamins, like these fortified vitamins, then it'll last longer. It'll be a little bit more nutrient dense because we've basically taken out all the nutrients by removing all these other parts of the flour. And then, so it's like, it was like well intended, but then at the consequence of now our health is so poor and we're wondering why we're all sick and why we're all getting diabetes and why we're all getting cancers and why we're all getting Alzheimer's and why we're just degrading so quickly. And it's because we've added all these things. First off, we've taken away a lot of stuff, all the good stuff. And then we've also added in a lot of terrible stuff to the point where so much of our food in grocery stores is not actually food. It is just chemicals. And I had this conversation with some people that I work with now that we were talking about Pop-Tarts. This is actually a funny debate. We were talking about Pop-Tarts and whether a Pop-Tart is considered ravioli or not, because
That's like asking if cereal is a soup.
Exactly. And it was this funny debate. But in my mind, I was just thinking, Pop-Tarts aren't even food. Like, it's literally just chemicals. So I would not even eat it anyway. And depending on where the ravioli comes from, it probably also is not food either because it's probably just all chemicals. So here I am in my just very cynical mindset about foods, especially things like Pop-Tarts or just a lot of chips and junk foods and things like that we feed our kids. I mean, they're things that I ate as a kid, and yes, occasionally I indulge myself and I'll have like an Oreo or something, and I'm like, this is literally not even food, but I'm eating it and putting it in my body.
You know what's one thing that I have seen recipes for but haven't tried yet, but I really want to try because of just the nostalgia of childhood, is those soft sugar cookies with like the colorful icing on them that are like
those are
always
so good.
front and center at Walmart,
Yes.
Oh, they're so bad for you, and they all have titanium dioxide in them because they're the cookie itself.
The cookies are so white.
But there is a crunchier recipe that you can make it homemade. and I haven't tried it yet. I want to so bad. I've only ever seen this recipe on Instagram. It's one that I've like scrolled past, but I want to try it because it's one of those that like every time I see them, it takes so much effort inside of me to not eat the darn cookie. And then if I do eat the cookie, it hurts my stomach so bad.
I wonder if they also have the azodicarbamine in it too, because they're kind of that fluffy, dough conditioned cookie.
I can't even read that nutrient label.
Oh yeah, it's basically all chemical names in it, not real foods. I mean, that's when you know, like if your foods are like, if it's made up of things that just sound not like foods, then it's not food itself. And so that's why I just get very frustrated when people are like, let's have this food. And you're like, that's not even actually food. You're eating it, but it's not food.
I had an appointment with the nutritionist at my birthing center today. And she said, if my brain cannot understand this and pronounce this food that I'm trying to read, then my body surely won't know what I'm talking about or what I'm giving it. Like if my brain doesn't know, my body definitely doesn't know. So don't feed it to your body. Like, wow, that's a really great way of looking at it. Especially as you're getting into the food label reading. Like we always say, if you don't know what it is, don't use it. But then some things like sodium chloride, table salt, of course, would be listed like that on a food label, and that's just really annoying. But yeah, that was her whole thing. If my mind doesn't know what it is, then my body won't know what it is. And I was like, oh, I love that quote. I'm stealing it. So I'm not fully taking credit for that. That one's all on her.
So another pesticide that is banned well, actually, here's what's interesting about this. So it's Chlormequat, I think is how you say it. So it actually was prohibited in the U.S. for 50 years. But in 2018, apparently the EPA has started quietly allowing grains that are sprayed with it back into the U.S. And so it's now being found in a lot of foods. So Moms Across America, if you haven't heard of them, they do a lot of testing of foods to see what, especially pesticides, like what chemicals are found on certain foods. And this Chlormequat has been found in things like Honey Nut Cheerios, Quaker Instant Oatmeal, and Kellogg's Fruit Loops. And it reminded me actually now of another study I think that they put out on glyphosate specifically. And Quakers, basically anything Quaker Oats is has the highest levels of glyphosate. So Honey Nut Cheerios was one of the big ones. The Quaker square, like those oats, the cereal that's like the little oat squares. Do you know what I'm talking about? They're like little fluffy wheat crunchy things.
Chex Mix? Or like Chex cereal?
No, they're like wheat thin or the wheat.
Oh,
they're like little squares.
And they have frosting on them.
They're called Quaker Squares, I think, is the cereal. It's basically a cereal. But anyway, my point is that anything Quaker typically showed up in the top 10 items that have the highest amount of glyphosate was Quaker. And then Honey Nut Cheerios was one of them. And then I think a couple Kellogg's items. And so, yeah. And so it's found.
Were you talking about mini wheats?
I'm mini wheats is my example of what these Quaker squares sort of look like. But they're Quaker, the cereal is called Quaker Square something. I don't even know.
They're Quaker cereal puffed wheat.
Something. Anyway.
You guys used to have this in your house all the time.
Probably.
Growing up. I do remember getting it and being like, why does this always taste kind of weird?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But the point is so this other one, basically, again, glyphosate has been put on the chopping block, but then they're trying to come up with different pesticides. And so they started phasing that one back in to some of the crops that they're allowing it on the crops and stuff, which is quite crazy. So yes, that is one of the other things. Some of the other like things that have been banned. So, okay, this was actually where a lot of these came from, was originally from like an Instagram post that I saw a long time ago of like, here's foods that are banned in other countries. And so I looked it up and figured out why. But things like Kraft mac and cheese has like yellow 5 and 6. And in countries such as Norway and Austria, they actually have like warning labels against these products because of their like petroleum based terribleness and how they lead to hyperactivity in children and that they're potentially carcinogenic and stuff. So specifically things like Kraft mac and cheese is like has these warning labels on it in other countries. Yeah. Do you want to share any others yourself, or should we like wrap it up? I'm like, we still have so many on this list that I'm like, holy moly.
We kind of went through the rest of the list. It's just a second mention.
Mention of them.
But yeah, Ritz crackers is another one. They're banned in Switzerland, Austria, and Denmark because these countries have a strict trans fat limit, and these have hydrogenated oils in them. Another food that has hydrogenated oils in it is peanut butter, like Jif or Skippy peanut butter. It literally says on the ingredient list, hydrogenated oils, which is like worse than seed oils, I would argue. It is bad. It's like taking the seed oil and breaking it down into a lesser compound. I think
they've been heated and treated like a ton, and it's they treat it with some sort of heavy metal. Yeah, it's bleached at some point because basically the processing of it turns it gray, and then they have to like bleach it to clean it. And yeah, the process of actually getting to that oil base is just so bad. And especially if they then put it into something like a margarine, it is like fluffed up with a bunch of terrible stuff also in order to make it look like butter, because it basically is grayed out. But that's what they use, is like the hydrogenated oils.
You said that. You want to know another thing this nutritionist said this morning? She said, you want to know the only thing that shortening does for you? And we were like, what? She goes, shorten your life. So she was like, if you have Crisco anywhere, get rid of it.
I actually hear this. We could end the episode with this other funny joke, which will maybe give us a little bit of a lightheartedness to this. So actually, it was our pastor who shared this weeks ago, and I've been meaning to tell you this joke, and I keep forgetting to tell you it, but it's so funny. So there's this couple, and they finally get to heaven. They die together, and they're walking into the gates of heaven together, and they're like, oh my gosh, this is so much better than we ever imagined. And the husband like whacks his wife on the shoulder, and he goes, we could have been here 10 years earlier if you hadn't made me stop, or if you hadn't made me eat all that healthy stuff. And like, they're just, I just thought it was so funny. I literally was probably the only one who was laughing as hard as I was in my seat, because it literally sounded like Wes and I of like, you're making me eat all this healthy stuff. He's definitely on board with it, but it's like, oh, we could have been in heaven so much sooner.
Did I tell you?
Stop eating all the healthy stuff.
One of my first trimester cravings was Scooby snacks. And
oh my goodness.
I called Max. I said, I want Scooby snacks. He said, absolutely not. And so he bought me like the Simple Mills organic graham cracker crackers. That is like gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, all organic, everything. And he was like, here's your replacement for Scooby snacks. Have fun. They satisfied, I have to say. They satisfied.
Yes. Well, yeah, what Paul, I forget what book this is that Paul talks about it, but it's just the idea of the harder thing to do is to go on living. Like, that's the greater sacrifice,
it's
is
in
to
Corinthians,
be here.
1 Corinthians.
Yes.
2 Corinthians. One of the Corinthians. We literally just studied that in church like 2 weeks ago.
There you go. Well, he talks about like how it's harder. It's more of a sacrifice to be here living on earth than it is to die and to be in heaven, which I actually just listened to a sermon by Tim Keller where he brought this up again And it was all, the sermon was actually on death and how so many of us tend to fear death and just the unknown of like exactly what's going to happen after, even as Christians. Like we know that heaven's there, but it's still like, it's such an obscure idea to us that it's kind of freaky. And yet Paul talks about how it's more of a sacrifice to stay alive and to be here and to do the hard work of sharing the gospel and to, continue the mission here that we've been given of reconciliation. And to die and to be in heaven is the greater thing. And so just like that joke was kind of funny that it's like, we could have been in heaven so much sooner if you hadn't made me switch all my foods to healthy stuff. And I honestly even forget why that was a joke in our sermon, but it was. And I thought it was so funny.
He was talking about stewarding our lives well. That's what it was.
Yes.
That would be great to have in a little comic form to put up on our prayer wall.
I love that idea.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, with that, we will end our episode right there. So I just want you guys to remember that as you are going through and making all of these healthy swaps, remember that whether you eat or drink or whatever you do it all for the glory of God. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks for listening to Crunchy Stewardship.